Hey everybody, hope you're doing well, and coming at you with the third of the teachings here on the parable of the sower. Let me kind of recap again. Jesus teaches this parable, and he says to the disciples who come to him later on and say, hey, we don't get it. We want to understand this. And he says, if you don't get this, you're not going to understand the kingdom. And I think this is a lot of what the church misses, because a lot of times people are arguing and, fighting for their doctrine and fighting for what they believe or what their take is. And I think the aspect here is Jesus is saying there's a kingdom, there's a nation, there is a government, there is a empire that is at work now in this world. And it's different and it functions different than any other nation or empire. And he's trying to get us to see how that nation functions. And he's trying to get us to operate according to that nation. And so he's teaching us this parable. And he's saying, hey, look, if you'll function in the kingdom, you will see your life as different and it will function differently. So here's the third seed that falls, and this seed falls on thorny ground, on thistles and thorn, and we talked about the rocks and not having deep soil. This has deeper soil. There's stuff growing here. But the thorns, he says, represent the worries of life, the desire for other things. And he tells other stories later on, about people that, hey, come and go and do this, and they're like, well, I've got to go to this funeral, or I've got to take care of my cow, or I got to do all this different stuff. And what he's saying is life gets in the way. What we think is important in life gets in the way of what God is saying is important in life. That is two major different things of what we think is important and what God thinks is important. Of us trying to live our lives, oh God, here, I'm going to go do this and bless it. And God's saying, no, I'm doing something. Why don't you join me? We keep trying to get God to join our thing. And the adventure of actually doing what he's doing is is way better and more exciting, more faith-filled, less routine than we are probably accustomed to, and most of the time that we're probably unwilling to embrace. That's what the kingdom's about, of being available, that at a moment we'll just do whatever he's telling us to do. And that freaks us out. I mean, it's scary to think about in some aspects of, wow, am I just willing to say something in this situation or respond to this certain dealing that I'm having with somebody in a way that doesn't come across as some, Jesus wasn't coming across to people as some religious fanatic. He came across to people as something very practical and very real for them to embrace. And I think way too many times we talk our church and Christian ease, and we don't really speak in a way that captures people's attention and, more importantly, speaks to what is inside of them. And that's what God's trying to do in our lives. That's what he's trying to do in everyone's life, is speak to the spirit inside of people. But we have so many frustrations and worries and cares of life. That's why he taught us in Matthew about not worrying. What do we really gain when we worry about things? And he says to us to trust in him. That's when we get to the place in our life where we really love God so much that we're so unconcerned with what anyone thinks. And not just be, I'm going to be rebellious and be unconcerned. Not that aspect. But unconcerned in the sense of we have no fear of attempting to speak into the Spirit and hopefully awaken that Spirit inside of other people. I love it, man, when people speak to me and say things that speak into the depth of my being. And I want to be that vessel for God, that I'll speak into the depth of who humanity is, that it awakens in a moment the Spirit God's trying to resurrect, the Spirit that God's trying to bring alive in them. And can I play some small role in that? God will lead us to those conversations. And it's not about, someone making a decision or someone doing something radical or crazy. It's just about being authentically engaged with God's Spirit and not being so pushed out by the cares of life and by the desires for other things. They're so temporary anyway. But I just want to desire God, and I want to encourage you with that today. I love you. I bless you with health and healing, wisdom and knowledge, power and prosperity, and the gifts and the fruits of the Spirit of God to be evident and flowing in your life. Have a fantastic week.